Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sage Live February 2024. My name is Ana Llobet, and I'm a scientist at Los Alamos National Laboratory here in New Mexico, one of the many that you guys are going to be familiar with or are familiar with. Before we start, let me briefly explain what the Sage Journey is and how Sage Live, which is what we are having today, will fit in that journey. So the Sage Journey is a program whose mission is to inspire and encourage students to explore STEM careers for their future. We do this by offering free summer camps, and some of you have participated in paid internships that hopefully some of you had the chance to attend at the National Lab, as well as professional growth sessions and many opportunities to connect with professionals who care about you and your future. Remember, all the volunteers that organize the camps, that organize the Sage Life, that are part of the internships, they are doing it to help you. Okay, they take time off their technical work to be here with you. I'm not skiing today because I'm here with you. Sage Life is part of the Sage Journey, which is an online gathering of students who have attended past camps, and some of you might have applied for this year's camp. And of course, all of you are curious about the next steps in the Sage Journey. It's also a time to reconnect with the Sage volunteers, and you might see some volunteers here. It is held monthly via Zoom, so we can have everybody from all the camps attend. And between the months of August and May, the topics that we cover are relevant to your journey. We hope they are relevant to your journey, and often are related to career, designing your life, sometimes how to write a resume or how to prepare for an interview. Or sometimes we also have technical topics, like we recently had something about astrophysics, or machine learning. So one thing that we ask is that you often, you tell us what you would like to hear about, and we will work to bring you those speakers. Today, we will talk about choosing possible career paths, and we have two special guests from Los Alamos National Laboratory. The first guest is Irene Qualters. She's a former Associate Laboratory Director for Simulation and Computation at Los Alamos National Laboratory. Federally funded Research and Development Center for National Nuclear Security Administration, is also called NNSA. For the U.S. Department of Energy, DOE. She previously served in leadership roles within the Computing and Information Science Engineering Directorate at the National Science Foundation, collaborating in interagency, industry, and academic engagements. So you see here a link, right? Not just national labs, but also industry. Collaborating in these engagements to advance computing technologies and capabilities. Prior to her National Science Foundation career, Irene had a distinguished 30-year career in industry with executive research and development positions in the technology sector. During her 20 years at Crave Research, she was a pioneer in the development of high-performance parallel processing technologies to accelerate scientific discovery. As vice president, she led information systems for Merck Research Labs, focusing on software, data, and computing capabilities to advance all phases of pharmaceutical research and development. So you see here a complex career. So that's the kind of people we bring to you. Our second speaker today, she has over 20 years of experience. Her name is Rebecca Strader, and she has over 20 years of experience working in higher education and is currently serving as the Higher Education and Workforce Development Specialist at Los Alamos National Laboratory. She spent 15 years with the Santa Fe Community College, serving as the Executive Director for the Higher Education Center on Academic Partnerships. Prior to joining the Santa Fe Community College, she worked in several positions, including coordinator and advisor in student recruitment and retention programs with the University of Colorado at Boulder, and the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, also in Boulder, Colorado. She's a native New Mexican and holds a bachelor's in arts and English, arts in English, literature, and women's studies with high honors from New Mexico State University and a master's of arts in English literature from the University of Colorado Boulder. She's been very busy, isn't it? She's currently pursuing a doctoral degree in educational leadership and administration at New Mexico State University. So you see, learning doesn't end when you get out of high school or college. We continue learning, and that's the excitement. So with that said, I think Irene will be our first speaker. But remember, if you guys have any questions already in your head, just type them in the chat so we can ask those questions. The speakers will give you a brief presentation on, their thoughts about what was important in choosing their career, and we will go from there. And I'm gonna try sharing Irene's slides. Irene, the floor is yours while I try to find your slides.
Great. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And as Anna said, I want to reiterate, this should be a conversation. So please direct it in the areas that respond to your interest. So I've just a very few slides by way of introduction. Next slide, Anna. The personal introduction Anna gave, I'm going to put this in the context of a career path, my current and previous career path, and then talk about a few enduring themes, no matter what stage of your career you're in. And I think you'll see resonance with Rebecca's thoughts as well. And then questions, discussion, which is where I hope our energy goes. Next slide. So the point here is, I think on my personal career timeline, I'm in late career, trying to end my career, but some of the themes and some of the significant topics that are resonant for me, I think are for you. So opportunities. I still feel I have lots of opportunities, as you do. So navigating those and choosing which are the best ones for me is something I still consider. Taking risk and learning, as Anna said, it's a constant. I'll spend a few minutes on the diversity side and my own view on that and my own experience. And I would say, for me, fostering and encouraging development of new leaders in the STEM fields is a personal passion that's probably stronger now than it was in the beginning. And right now I'm practicing letting go and exploring more deeply other interests. I guess the one thing I would say for me in high school, having an opportunity to do advanced math, which I actually wasn't looking for, but just landed on what was really, and that meant for me starting algebra in 7th grade as part of this NASA program, being the only woman in that group in the school I was in, really opened my eyes into something that would become more of a career passion. I began working at 14, which was probably illegal even then, but trying to balance those responsibilities, as I know some of you have to do, was a challenge for me. And money was a big deal. I was one of 6 single parent, lots of children, 55 cousins on one side, 17 on the other. It was a big family, high expectations, but funding was always an issue. Next slide. And so I wanted to, from the beginning, this is where I veered off a little too much into nerdiness, but I think your career path is part of the bigger picture of who you are and what your experiences are from beginning to end. And so there's a temporal aspect. You can't always know what your opportunities are going to be, or what your priorities are, or what your limitations might be in the future. And so I think you have many possible career paths. And so I think being both open to opportunities, but also learning about yourself and what resonates with you, it is a journey. And some of you probably already know very well where your interests are, and will follow that path. And for others, there's much unknown. And the other piece is that your career is only part of who you are and part of what's important to you. Family, friends, other interests have to be balanced, and those balances will change over time. Next slide. And then I think finding your passion, for some of you, as I said, you already know your passion. For others, I think those experiments in trying new areas is really important early in your career, so you have some notion of what really resonates with you. And frankly, here in Minnesota, I was just over the last couple of months encouraging a young woman who came at the age of 4 from Ghana and was offered the opportunity to go into advanced computer science in high school. But she was the only woman, the only girl really in that class, and she didn't know whether to do it. And I said, try it. And she's really loving it. And it could have failed, but I think those experiments are important. And the other thing I would say is now and through undergrad, getting a solid foundation in scientific and technical skills. It doesn't have to be particularly deep, but have enough breadth that you are ready for opportunities that might come later in college and later in life. Because some language, some foundational knowledge, for example, for me, for calculus, it would have been very hard to go back and recover that in mid-career, and it turned out to be essential in my own career. Next slide. The other one, and again, taking risks, learning is a constant. And some of you know yourselves very well already and know your limits. Others are more like me. You only know where your limits are when you go over the edge. And but you learn from that, and taking opportunities which were not anticipated or on your career path can sometimes be a good way to explore new areas. Risk tolerance, I would say, is both personal and context sensitive. And for example, choosing to have a child can, in your career, when that occurs and what the trade-offs are and how much risk you're willing to take both as a parent and as a career person is, we could get into details, but that's a very personal and contextual choice. And then sometimes career paths that don't look good now may look good in the future. Next slide. And this is going to, next slide, Anna. This is the other piece I wanted to mention, the importance of tribes and communities. And I would say, while it may be important to you now, it'll be increasingly important. It's absolutely been essential to me. I had the opportunity to live and work internationally. Those relationships both inform my career direction. They provide support I provide support to them. They really allow a richness to your career path that there's no other way to get. Second point is it's really important to recognize that sometimes you're going to feel like an outlier, and it's really important that you use that opportunity so that in the future you also recognize outliers and can include them. And for me, for example, recognizing people who think very differently, who may have Tourette's, who may have certain ways of thinking that are very different, being able to have your team see the advantage and bring out the best of ideas, no matter what path they take and no matter who, is really an important asset to everyone. And I just close on this section maybe by saying diversity is in another part of my life. I'm a master gardener, and one of my areas of expertise is prairies, and a vibrant prairie, one that can sustain disease, changes in temperature, etc., is one that has enormous diversity and richness in its genomics and in its plant species. And so with that, I'd close. I guess the point on the slide, I'll make the one quick point on the slide. Within the STEM, you can see that this is degrees by field, and you can see between male and female, there's enormous difference across disciplines. And so as we go into fields where the frontiers are really at the intersections of disciplines, being able to capitalize on the aspects of both the discipline and the diversity represented in the cohort, the community that is part of that discipline, is another area of very rich learning and opportunity. So anyway, I'm rambling on. And I think I'll end with that. And thanks to Daniela and Anna.
Thank you so much, Irene. I would like you to take a second to, students it might take some time to understand that graph. Would you like to explain what that graph is?
So,
because, yeah.
Yes. So this is females, and it's science and engineering degrees awarded to women by field and by degree. And the orange line is 2011, and the blue line is 2020. And it's in the disciplines of social behavior, agriculture, and biology, physics. And you can see that within those fields, over 50%, even if you go out to doctorate level, over 50% of those communities, and this is US only, but those are dominated by women. Over 50% of the women who get degrees in biology at even a PhD level are female. However, when you get into the areas of the physical sciences, and I would say there's a bifurcation in the physical and earth sciences. Earth sciences has many more females than core physics. Core physics is much more similar to math, computer science, and engineering in terms of the females. So while the graph of physical and earth sciences shows that a rosier picture with respect to both progress and the presence of female, it actually is bifurcated, and the geosciences and chemistry, which is represented in there, are more like biology and agriculture, whereas the core physics is more like math, computer science, and engineering. So you can see that these communities are actually quite different. And you can also see that there's modest progress, but not a lot of progress in the past 10 years in changing that dynamic. And I would also say, if you look at diversity by African American, Native American, and Latina, the numbers are much lower than by race. In other words, the percentage of Latina, the percentage of African American, and the percentage of Native American in math and computer science is actually far below 25%. And it's not changing very much. And so this is a problem, frankly, for us as a country, because the demographics of our country are changing, and that richness in the demographics is not being represented in certain disciplines and fields. And so I view that as quite problematic in many dimensions, not the least of which is, if we want to be a leader on the global stage, we can't do it by continuing to draw from such a small segment of our population. Does that help, Anna?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I bet students have experienced that, where they are talking to a group of friends and someone who's slightly different background comes up with a solution, right? And I think that's what Irene is saying, for us to do better in the world, to find solutions to very important problems that humanity is facing. We need the other half of the population, that is women, to engage in those fields, because we might be able to bring things that had not been yet assessed as solutions. And and as Irene said, you say, oh, well, there are a few women. Guess what? It's lots of fun. And as I typed in the chat, Irene, to find your passion, explore, go to this robotics club. Don't be scared if, you are one of the few people that have an accent like me, or that is a woman, or whatever, you're non-binary or whatever. And no, just explore until you find your passion. So I think that don't be shy, don't be scared. And you have also seen in Irene's talk the importance to give back to the community. So she technically is retired, and she continues to work on inspiring the new leadership, to inspire us all to keep going and to keep bringing up that community to be able to be part of the solution. So thank you so much, Irene. Does anyone have a question? Because this is meant to be interactive. So I'm going to stop the share so I can see your faces. Do you have questions? Did anything that you heard this morning, is anything new that you had not heard before, or that surprised you in that talk? If you can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand, or you can type in the chat. Your call. See.
There we are.
Let's see, do we have any hands, Daniela? I don't see hands. They are very shy this morning. Are you guys awake? Scott, did anything that Irene mentioned, here you go, surprise you?
Yeah, it was an incredible career, and then to hear all that, I think, you know, like I would emphasize what she said at the end. Basically, is that, you know, we need a diverse pool of, you know, everyone has different experiences, has different ideas on how to solve the variety of problems we all face as humans. And so I think, you know, whatever we can do to try to increase that is fantastic. So I would fully agree with that, and appreciate making that point, and using the statistics to pull that out. The need for that is incredible. So thank you. It was wonderful to hear and for her to share. So.
Thank you, Scott. Sorry for putting you on the spot. But you have your camera on, and I don't know if the other ones are having breakfast or so. If you guys have questions, type them in the chat. And we are gonna go to our next speaker, Rebecca. Rebecca, I'm gonna try sharing your slides. So if you want to start introducing yourself, that would be great.
Well, good morning, everyone. You all heard a little bit of my background in the introduction that you all gave, but I'm Rebecca Estrada. I work at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and hopefully one of the things, the perspectives that I bring this morning is, how do you end up at a national laboratory when you don't have a STEM background? And so I think one of the things that I hope to be able to talk about is understanding this can be a winding road. And while we know some of you are going to find your successes in all sorts of organizations, understanding that the national laboratories, they're a whole community and a whole set of opportunities unto themselves. And it doesn't necessarily matter in some cases where you come from, because there's a place for you at any of these national laboratories. And my own winding road experience is part of that. So kind of my first slide here echoes a little bit of what you heard before from Irene and what you've heard from other guests, I'm sure, which is we are a whole person, right? We're not just our careers. We're the things that we were before we were in school, while we were going through school, the schools that we attended, and the people in our lives who informed all of that. So, I mean, one of the first things to know about me is that I do identify, you know, depending on where we're sitting in the nation, Chicana, Latina, Hispanic, and that very much drives who I am. It's very much part of my foundation and the way that I see the world. You see pictures of my parents, of Chimayo, of places. You see New Mexico. My parents, though, were from Mexico originally. My father was born in a U.S. citizen, but was, you know, basically raised in Chihuahua as part of a family that went back and forth between the borders. My mother was from Zacatecas. But once my father came here when he was 8 years old and stayed, my mother came and, you know, really looked for that American dream, looked for what was going to be the next step. And then, of course, I come along and I have a sister as well. And then who I become is the foundation that they set for me. But also, again, I love music. You know, I watch TV, like, you know, like, so there are all these things that make me who I am. And so you kind of get a sense of what all that is. And then I guess the last thing I guess I'll just kind of say is, you know, so you heard I was originally a literature major, right? I was about storytelling. I was about narrative. I was about how stories make us help see the world. And that's kind of the way that I work, right? You hear me kind of tell a bit of a story. I was the first one in my immediate family to go to college and everything that meant, right? My parents were incredibly supportive, but they had no vocabulary or no way to immediately help me do that. I stayed in a 25, you know, plus year higher education career. I worked at colleges and universities. I primarily worked in student services, doing things like advising and running programs. And now, which is kind of that last picture under the Community Partnerships Office, which is where I work, is Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is where I am now. And does that mean that will be where I will end my career? Maybe, or maybe not, right? Because that is what we find happens, is we find new opportunities that come along. and help us kind of find, again, that winding road that is our professional journey. So next slide. So things that worked for me and that may work for you. So don't question that thing that you have passion for. And you heard Irene talk about that as well, right? That is the thing that's going to drive you. You have to find the thing that's relevant to you. And it may change over time. So again, I'll just use myself as an example. I started loving books. I started loving literature. I actually initially thought I was going to be a high school English teacher, which then led to a bachelor's degree in literature and women's studies, because then I began, again, to think about my identity and how that also informed my way in the world and how I thought I could be useful to other people. And I thought that was going to be in a classroom, right? And that was my passion for a really long time. And I did teach. I was adjunct faculty. I did a lot of that. But then at some point, I began to realize that those relationships with students and helping to guide them, that became really important to me. And so that then led to other opportunities in my professional career. And then I realized, you know, there are these bigger ways to make connections. There are bigger ways to partner. And that became my passion. And then I looked for opportunities and mentors, and I'll talk a little bit about mentors here in a second, to find to where I sit today. So it will change, the thing that's elevated for you, that's a priority for you, and that's your passion. But it's totally okay to follow that and to see if there are ways to make sure that your world and your professional journey are relevant to you. Find your mentors in your support system, form relationships, build your network. You know, you're going to hear about this a lot. And again, as I noted, I was really lucky. I had a family that super supported me. I recognize that's not everybody's story. So you have to find in your world those mentors, those friends, those colleagues, those people who are going to support you, who are going to hold you up, right, when you feel like you might stumble. And for me, again, that was really good teachers, right, who helped me navigate a system of applying to college. That was really good professors in college who helped me navigate a system for understanding what it meant to go to graduate school, or help me understand what it was that I wanted to do. While you're forming those relationships and building your networks, opportunities are going to present themselves, and it's going to look different for everybody. But for me, right, that meant I had faculty who said, hey, here's this really great internship. Let me help you get into that. Or, hey, here's a really good work study position that's going to allow you to do work with, you know, X professor and X subject. And so isn't that going to be really awesome for you to kind of learn and shadow that person? So you're going to walk through the doors that these mentors open for you. But that can happen peer-wise too, right? You can have a really good friend. Let's say if we're talking about the STEM careers, you can have a really good friend who's working in a lab and says, hey, there's a new position that's opened up. Maybe you want to come try to get into this. Or, hey, I'm really looking at this kind of summer internship program, or I did this summer internship program last year. Maybe you should apply for it this year, right? All those conversations that are just over coffee or over lunch or however are going to open these doors to opportunity. And they're also the people who are going to support you. And I will be very honest, when it comes to my own particular professional career, I am insanely grateful, incredibly grateful to the mentors who showed me the way, who were both role models for me, but also in some ways, like I said, held my hand through some of these processes to make sure that I could find the same kind of success, right? Which then meant I could reach behind me and hopefully help bring some others as well. You want to make sure you find balance as it is meaningful. To stay focused on your goal. If you are so focused on your goal that you begin to kind of lose sight of everything else and you don't have that place where you can take a break and walk away from the problem or walk away from a challenge, I'll just be really honest, you'll burn yourself out. And so what you really want to do is be ambitious, but be ambitious with balance, because it really is important. Again, as I've pursued this doctoral degree, which I get to defend this month, so almost done, right? But if I hadn't had moments where I could take that break, right? I was super focused. I wanted to get it done. I knew I had to be at that computer. I knew I had to do that research. I knew I had to to evaluate that data. But if I didn't give myself the opportunity, which is why, again, you know, you saw that kind of Netflix, Hulu, those kind of logos earlier, you have to give yourself permission to have that balance. So was it hanging out with my husband, you know, and going for a drive just to clear my head? Was it watching some really bad television? Was it reading a Stephen King short story, right? It's finding those things or those relationships again, which are part of those balance, my friends, my colleagues, who made sure that I wasn't so focused that I lost sight of everything else and burned myself out. Again, you want to actively seek opportunities. And that can look like anything, right? When you're in high school, and again, you heard, I think, Anna and Irene kind of talk about what are those clubs? What are those organizations? What are those opportunities that I can kind of find that can take up some time and help feed what I'm interested in and help inform what might be my next journey? What's going to put me in front of other people who are also kind of in careers, right? Because it's totally okay not to know yet, right? I know most of the folks in here are 10th graders, right? And so people are talking to you about dual credit probably, or they're talking to you about college, and they should be, and you should be thinking about it. But it's okay to still have some question marks, have some ideas, but have some question marks. But as you actively seek opportunities to get in front of people with careers that you might be interested in, or in some of these clubs, or in some of these community things that happen, if you have a college campus where you live, you know, they often have things open to the public where you can just go and listen to people talk. That's a really interesting way to start to get a sense of how things work. And then once you're on that college campus or any college campus, pay attention to those things. Who's speaking? Who's out there giving presentations? And again, lean into those relationships with your professors, lean into those relationships with your classmates who can help you find those opportunities. And I will tell you, I'm not one who typically believes in regret, but there were a couple of opportunities that I didn't actively seek and I let pass by me. And while it certainly didn't stunt me or stop me from growing or stop me from moving forward, it does mean that there was something that maybe I could have gotten something out of that I didn't get a chance to. So don't make that same mistake that I did. Again, it is okay not to be sure, and it is okay to change your mind. And it's also okay to recognize that things are going to change as you go through, right? At some point, I was going to be a high school teacher. I was going to be a professor. I taught on a college campus. Then suddenly I'm working with students, advising them, helping them with their technical writing in summer research programs. Then I'm at Santa Fe Community College doing advising and helping students decide where they're going to transfer to. And then I'm at Los Alamos National Laboratory, working with colleges and universities to help bring their students to the laboratory as well as find jobs in the region. So one, you don't have to know all the answers right away about what you want to do. You just have to have an idea. You have to have an idea, and you have to know what makes you excited, and you have to figure out how you can follow that thread through your career journey and figure out, okay, this is how I'm going to get there, right? This is how I'm going to get to wherever I need to be in that particular moment. And, you know, Irene talked about experiments. What does that mean? That means it's totally okay to fail. You learn so much by failing. And I don't mean like go run around failing tests. I don't want to be responsible for that. But it does mean that you can try something. You can try that internship that you're not so sure about and then walk away and go, oh no, I never ever want to do that for 20 years, or I don't want to do that for 5 years. It doesn't mean it was a waste of your time. It means it helps make things clearer. It puts things into perspective for you. And you now begin to say, hey, now I know what I don't want to do, right? Or maybe you try something else and you go, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. I'm never going to be as successful in this as I might be in something over here. So those opportunities to stumble, those opportunities to fail, they're real learning opportunities. And they're also real moments where you get to get more clarity on who it is you want to be and what it is that you want to do. And again, going back to talking about that support system, you're going to have people who are going to help you when you stumble. You're going to have people who are going to help you when you go, oh, that didn't work out the way that I thought it was. And that's great. Lean into that because again, you're going to get more clarity of purpose and possibly more clarity of thought. And then really the last thing is seek out and use your resources, right? Never worry about asking questions because the truth is I must have driven people crazy, but you have to ask those questions because you need to know the answers and not everybody's coming in at the same place. And the fact that you all are here already on this Zoom tells me that you're beginning to understand that you need to seek out and use your resources. But they're all over the place, right? There are programs like this, there's summer programs, they're your teachers, they're your professors when you get to college. There are other kinds of programs that you'll find yourself in. Again, they're financial aid offices once you're looking at colleges and how to make sure that you're getting all the funding. They're people who can help you decide what is the right college, what is the right university, depending on what it is that I want to do. There are all sorts of resources that are out there. And again, you've heard us, I think, all say on this call, we're here for you. That is what we want to do, right? We want to be a resource to you. We want to answer those questions. And you're going to find that community all over the place, wherever you're at. So seek out those resources. Make sure you're using them because that's what they're there for. Don't be shy about them and just don't ever stop asking questions because the answer to one of those questions may get you to the next step. So hopefully that was kind of my quick overview. I'll just leave you with, again, I can't stress enough how important it is to lean into those relationships, your mentors, your colleagues, or how important it is to really make sure that you're using those resources because they're there and we've built them for you. And we try to get better every day. So whatever interactions you have with us and those resources as well tells us what we need to do better for you and for those who come after you. So please, please, please use us. So, and that includes now. So if you have questions, if you have thoughts, you know, please feel free, put them in the chat, ask us, let us know, because we always want these to be two-way conversations. And we know you're a whole person because we know we're whole people. So thank you so much,
Rebecca. And I want, even if you have your camera on, let's encourage Rebecca in her PhD submission and defense. And if your camera is off, let's send some clapping hands for Rebecca. Come on, let's be her support system. It takes a lot of courage, and I am super proud of you, Rebecca. Yeah, thank you, Ashani. So it means a lot. We need to, lift each other up. That's what it takes. I so much wish that I had heard those talks when I was in 10th grade. And some people might not realize how much it touched our lives, what you just said. So I'm gonna disclose something here is my parents didn't have higher education. And I don't know, I mean, we heard similarities in other families. My parents couldn't help me with math and physics and in high school, right? And but I found my group of friends and teachers that made it really fun. When I went in, I had a strong passion. I was gonna accomplish going into college, and I managed to make myself sick. So after the first year of college, I had to quit. I had to quit because my body said, enough, you are not being balanced. Did you hear the word balance in Irene and Rebecca's talk? I wasn't being balanced. I was studying, not sleeping, working super hard to make my parents proud, because I knew the sacrifice they were doing, right? And I made myself sick. And for a moment, I thought, that was it. I failed. I'm a failure in front of my parents and society. It's over. What did I do? I took off for a year. I learned a lot of techniques that I've been using throughout my life. When I see I'm spiraling down, hey, I take my emergency kit. You know, I remind myself of the things I like to do that bring me up, and I force myself to do these good things: sleep, eat well, spend time with friends, exercise, and things like that. So I learned from that experience. So after a year off, I went back to college, and I surround myself by very close friends. They were there studying with me. My best friend was an art historian. So they were there with me, my support system, and they pushed me up. So I could go back to school against my major fears that I was going to fail again. And then I was one of the 9 people who graduated that year in physics in Barcelona. And you heard a lot about, looking for opportunities, jumping, taking risks. The only reason I'm at Los Alamos National Lab is because, a series of coincidences, right? Do you want to take this internship in the summer and help that teacher in their, lab class? Oh, why not? Okay, let's do it. Oh, do you want to take this Erasmus grant to go to France to do some 3 months? Sure, why not? And then I ended up doing my PhD there. It's a bunch of jumping into opportunities that come across. So it resonated very much with me.
So I see there are some questions in the
Yes,
chat.
I'm gonna go.
I was gonna say, I don't know if they're specifically directed into me, so everyone can obviously jump in, but let me just to Ramin, do you think AP classes are good opportunities to use and to challenge yourself, even if you take AP classes that aren't related to your field? So I'm gonna put on my higher ed hat. And the answer is yes, for a few different reasons. Even if you don't, if you take the classes, you should take the tests. But I know that sometimes there isn't always the opportunity to take all the tests that go along with it. But like the easy answer is, if you take the test, obviously you're going to get college credit, which makes life easier. But you know what it also does? It also demonstrates your ability to critically think, because now you're starting to wrap all these kind of different disciplines and the different perspectives that they give you. And it allows you to kind of stretch muscles that I think you may not necessarily be stretching all the time, right? So if you're really focused in STEM, and then you're taking an AP English course or an AP social science course, you find that there really is a lot of engagement and a lot of overlap, but it also helps you to look at it a little bit differently and stretch a little bit of a different muscle. And I think that people see that, right? And that's demonstrated in when you apply for jobs, when you apply for internships, and you're going to see that it's going to extend your vocabulary as well. And so, because your vocabulary often is connected to that thinking. So I would absolutely say yes. If you can do it, and if you have the opportunity to, not all school districts necessarily have lots of AP courses, but if you have access to, I would say absolutely. But I don't know if anyone else wants to address that.
Maybe I would add, I think some of it may depend on knowing yourself. So for me, I tend to be a risk taker. So I tend to say, sure, let's do that. But then I get midway in and say, So I do now try to think a little bit about trade-offs. Not that I don't take the risk, but that if it's going to really stretch me, and I'm already stretched to my breaking point, maybe the timing might not be quite right. So I think there's that context as well. So
yeah, that's the balance part, right? If you're taking nothing but AP courses, maybe not so much, right? Because you want to keep yourself healthy, right? Going back to Anna's.
Yeah, we have more classes. Are honor classes beneficial to get into a UC college or an Ivy League?
Again, I think the short answer from back when I was working in that advisor kind of position is yes, they are, of course. But so are other things. So again, I think it's going to go back to that. I think it's two things, right? It's back to what Anna and Irene said in terms of balance, right? Don't stretch yourself so thin, but it's also about making sure what's important to you. If all you're taking is honors courses, but you're not showing community involvement or other things that you have passion for, right, those things can offset. I think particularly when you're looking at Ivy League schools, you know, they do want to see what we've seen is they want to see a well-rounded person. And when you do that letter of intent, they want to be able to see that as well. UC colleges, it kind of depends on which UC college you're talking about. Because some have different emphasis than others, right? But sure, an honors class is never, ever going to look, it's certainly never going to be not beneficial to you because it demonstrates resilience, discipline, you know, being able to complete a project. But again, I just want everyone to keep in mind that, again, don't break yourself, but also people want to see you as a whole person. They want to understand what are the other passions and what are the other things. So equally beneficial are other types of activities that show who you are and what drives you.
Do you agree, Irene?
Yes, I think that was well said. I think Rebecca said it just right.
Angelina was asking, how did you figure out what to major in based on your interest? There are so many to choose. I'm gonna tell you from my end. It's kind of, so when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a doctor or a teacher, and a teacher in school, right, in elementary school. And then I realized that the doctors have a very tough life, like the medical doctors have a very tough life. And I realized that the teachers, bless their heart, they have a very tough life too. And I have very little memory myself. I had a very hard time with history and literature and all these things, remembering all those things. But I really enjoy asking why, right? So for me, physics made sense because physics is, for me, it was asking, is finding the answers for all my why questions. And if you understand, you don't need to remember much, right? So that was my going into physics. I had no role models in physics. I had no clue which careers in physics, but I really, you know, when you watch a movie and a series and you cannot stop watching the next one, well, that's what was happening with me with physics. I was doing, problems like things like that, and I really keep going until there was a concept I didn't understand, and then I had to wait for the teacher to explain it, and then I could go again. So finding I think that's what Irene and Rebecca have mentioned, finding that passion, that things that keeps you going, that you don't realize in your watch, that you spend an hour, reading about something, how the stars are made or how. So that was me. I like to know why. And to me, physics became it without even knowing. I knew nothing about national labs. I knew nothing about research. Most of my friends in physics are working in the financial industry and things like that. So they all have the same background and we have completely different jobs. So so that was my path. I don't know if Rebecca, would you like to share?
Sure.
How did you figure out what major to go for based on your interests?
So here's going to be my honesty moment, right? So I knew I loved literature and I knew I loved talking about it and I knew I liked people and working with people. So when I put all that together initially, I thought, well, that means you're a teacher, right? Because I didn't necessarily have a whole lot of other examples, right, of what I could do with literature, right? So in some ways, so you heard me say, I went to college assuming I was going to be an education major and teach I was going to teach high school English. And so I really didn't have a lot of examples. And then when I got to college, and I changed my major because I got to college and I got to see English professors, people who were doing the things that I liked, reading, writing about it, talking about it, but doing it kind of in a really different way. And so then that's when I said, that's what I want to do, right? But I think the best way that I can answer that question is very much like Anna. Like I thought about what are the things that I really love and that I think I could see myself doing for the next 20 years, but that bring everything together, right? So again, I loved literature. I liked working with people and I liked talking about literature, right? So if it's, again, Anna's is a really perfect example. She liked asking those questions. And as she got into those physics subjects, if she couldn't stop asking questions or if she couldn't stop turning the page, so to speak, then you kind of know, oh, this is kind of where I should go. And so let's say, you love science and you're taking a biology course, but you're also taking, say, a chemistry course or something like that. Which of those two is the one that you look forward to the most, right? Which one is the one that you have the most fun asking questions about or talking about? And if you don't know the minute you get on a college campus, that's okay too, because you're going to get in there. And like I said, you're going to meet those professors and it's going to go, wow, like, oh my God, I love talking to this person about this thing. This is it. Here it is, right? That I think sometimes that bell goes off.
Thank you, Rebecca. Irene.
So maybe just one thing I'd add, when I was choosing a major, I actually wasn't thinking about my career. I was really just doing the passion thing about what do
Having
you like
fun.
doing. And I didn't even care about the grades. And like Anna, I kind of started navigating to much more analytical. I didn't like memorization. So after initial courses in biology, I kind of moved on. And I honestly, this switch to computer science, which happened in graduate school, came through the math vehicle. I started reading Alan Turing and then von Neumann and got interested. And I thought at that time, which shows you how silly I was, I thought, I'm probably never going to find a job when I get my advanced degree, but I like it anyway. So let's just keep going. So I don't know. So not a straight line exactly.
Yeah, and often people, there's this stereotype, the Big Bang Theory scientists, right? Completely clueless of their surroundings and balance and all these things. And I hope you all have realized that we have lives, we have pets, we have kids, we have hobbies and things like that. We are human like you. We cry, we sleep, we pour our coffee in the morning. We are not different than you. And when we were your age, we thought that maybe we couldn't do what the people on the TV screens or the Nobel Prizes, or people that get awards we thought they were too far away. And we just kept chugging along, like the train, the train just chugging along, trying this, trying the other thing. And here we are, right? Another thing that you can do to figure out what your passion is, and I'm going to give an example. At some point, my son said that he wanted to be a car mechanic because he took a class of car mechanic automobile in the school. I said to him, good for you, dude. This summer, you go do an internship in a mechanic shop and see if that's something that, you want to get up in the morning and spring your legs, and get dressed to go to get to work and the job, right? And get your hands dirty and so on. So just experience. You don't know what to do. Just keep going and try it and see if you like it or not. I think that's what you heard from all of us. Just keep trying. We didn't know. It's okay to change. So keep going. So Raman is asking, what kind of process is there to get a PhD and become a college professor?
So there are all sorts of ways to do. I mean, if nothing else, like one of the things that I think you can take away from today is that you can absolutely have a straight path. There are totally straight paths to anything. And so we can certainly talk about what a straight path looks like, but also know that like there are winding roads. And so I've seen people and have worked with people who've become professors a couple of different ways. So I'm just going to give two examples. What I'll call the straight line path is just what you think. So let's talk about someone who loves chemistry, did chemistry in high school, majored in chemistry as an undergrad. Typically, while they were majoring in chemistry as an undergraduate at college or university, you know, they were doing internships. They had a placement in a lab there on the campus. And then through that, they got the opportunity to apply to get a master's degree, right? Graduate school. Some schools have masters straight into PhDs. Some have masters and then PhDs. Some people choose to get your master's in chemistry, let's say at one place, and then go to someplace else to get your PhD. Then others choose to maybe do their master's and their PhD at the same place. But again, so you graduate from undergraduate, you go to the graduate school that you choose. And again, you're continuing, again, through those relationships with mentors and with your own actively seeking out opportunities. You're continuing to get placements in laboratories. You're seeking internship opportunities, both on campus and outside of campus. And then once you finish that educational process, typically, when you're finishing and you've written your dissertation, you've defended your dissertation, there are these professional organizations that have their annual meetings, and typically all the colleges are there hiring, colleges and universities across the country, and you're applying for a job like you are with anything else, except for you're providing your research, all this experience that you've had, and then you can get hired at a college or university. So that's, and again, there's kind of other steps that are still in there with that, but that's kind of like a one straight line. Let me give you an example of someone else though. I knew someone who didn't necessarily feel like college was his world. So he did do undergrad, but like he will tell you, I can't even remember what he majored in, but he will tell you he like majored in something that had nothing to do with anything that he was interested in it, but he didn't necessarily see a career path in it. What he decided to do was go into the military. He decided to go into the Air Force. He knew if he had that college degree, he was going to go into the Air Force as an officer. As he got into the Air Force, he began to realize he was really interested in issues of gender with the military and decided to pursue a master's degree researching these types of things, right? In terms of gender bias or other identity things that were happening in the military. He then left the military and then decided to pursue a PhD in an adjacent field. And then he became a college professor, and then he would eventually become a college president. So again, there are different ways that you can decide to do these things. When he was going into the Air Force, I don't know that he ever thought he was going to be a college professor or eventually a president of a college, right? But that is precisely the path that he took. And his dissertation was on gender bias in the military. And he did some articles about don't ask, don't tell in the military, and that became a college career for him, a career in the academy. So there are all sorts of different ways. I would say talk to people who are professors, and when you're on a college campus, particularly in areas that you're interested, ask them what their road was, because that's always the best way to find out.
Thank you, Rebecca. Irene, would you like to add, or would you like to answer the computer science question?
Maybe just a quick, there is a standard path for a college professorship, and I don't want to ignore that because there are some important timing considerations having to do with if you're going to go the standard route on a 10-year track, there really is kind of a prescribed protocol that you need to do. But as Rebecca said, there are other ways, but my son is in industry, but he teaches, he has his PhD and he teaches a class every semester as well. So there are, but if you're going to go the traditional college professor, there is a pretty prescribed tenure track, and it's hard to veer off that and recover, frankly.
So
But the computer science and majoring in medicine, let me take, so the obvious crossover point is in devices, medical devices. And so that's a very, between engineering and computer science and bio, and that's having to do with sensing, et cetera. That's a very rich field and promising. And so so certainly if you're majoring in medicine, computer science can help you there. I guess increasingly, however, as medicine tries to go in the direction of prediction in disease, for example, much of the work there has to be analytical and computer science oriented. And so, yes, I think there's enormous crossover and likely to be more and more. I mean, traditionally, it had been mostly in the area of statistics, but now it's really modeling and simulation, particularly if you're doing molecular dynamics, but much more if you're doing predictive medicine, disease treatments. It's increasingly crossover with computer science. And I would say it's really helpful to have, because the two fields have not grown up together more the way physics and computer science have had a more natural affinity for decades. But I would say for those going into that intersection, it's really helpful because the language barrier can be quite intense. If you have the two groups completely divorced from one another, you need people who can cross over, frankly.
Think about the databases of the strains of different diseases that have helped us mitigate, whether it is, HIV, AIDS, there's people testing humans around the world, and there are those getting the information and figuring out all the strains and how they cross countries and things like that. So I think that about our recent COVID, right? They were the doctors on the floor making sure you were not coughing onto your brothers and sisters, and they were the other ones trying to figure out what vaccine and how to distribute them and things like that. So how easy it is to change majors in college if I am interested in several fields and I cannot decide this early in the college application process?
It can be easy. It's getting easier every day because colleges are recognizing that there are foundational skills that translate from all sorts of, that translate across disciplines. So I bring that up because the short answer is it's easy. But here's where I would caution someone to make sure that they're asking all the right questions. And that is, if you're moving from, let's say, physics to chemistry, there are several of the foundational courses that you're going to have taken that are going to work for either of them, right? If you go from chemistry to history, right, there will still be some foundational courses that will count for both majors. But sometimes if you're changing your major so drastically, there are some courses, and this will make more sense as you start to sit down and talk about how do I get a degree, right? You have to, it's just like high school. You have to make sure that you're checking those boxes. I have to take X amount of math class. I have to take this kind of English class. So you're doing the same thing with your college degree. If you're switching from disciplines that are very, very different, sometimes classes you took over here won't apply to your degree over here. And so you may have taken extra classes, right? And some colleges will say, well, we'll call them your electives or we'll call them something else. So you can easily change majors, but you just want to make sure that you know, if you're changing, are you changing within some of the same kind of umbrella subject areas that are going to take those courses with you? Or are you going to be losing some credits because of the fact that you may have to take different classes that you didn't take before because you were majoring over here? I think that sounds a little bit worse than it is. And like I said, colleges and universities today are beginning to realize that people do change their mind. So they're starting to bucket things more effectively than they used to. And you don't necessarily see someone, although you do, I shouldn't say that. Typically, you don't necessarily see, you know, you see someone maybe go from the sciences to computer science. You don't always see someone go from literature, you know, to physics. But it does happen. And so you just, again, have to be really conscious of what trade-offs, again, there might be as you do that. But the short answer is it's easy. It's just a matter of what might be the trade-off and how might that influence your decision moving forward.
Excellent. Irene, would you like to tackle that? Or there were some questions about internships and for example, internships were mentioned a couple of times today. How would you advise a sophomore with limited science experience get an internship?
You've put the link there.
Yeah, so different national labs as a whole is not just science. We hire and we have internships in all sorts of fields. So we need lawyers, we need waste managers, we need radiological technologies, we need accountants, people that machinists. So internships are not just physics, chemistry, biology, right? So there are all sorts, and different national labs have different opportunities. So depending on where you live, you might want to explore that national lab and see if they offer high school internships. I put in the chat the link to the high school internships at Los Alamos National Laboratory. You need to be a raising senior, which I think is the summer of your 11th grade year. You can be an intern at Los Alamos National Laboratory as a high school student. But I'm going to let Irene, if you want to add things, that would be fantastic. We have all sorts of internships, and I'm sure SLAC and Oak Ridge and Sandia National Labs and Lawrence Berkeley and Lawrence Livermore, in their website, they will say which kind of internships they offer.
Yes, and I just want to amplify what you said, Anna, because in my directorate, even though we were focused on simulation and computation, we had accountants, we had all kinds of individuals, even in the directorate, that did a variety of jobs, technical support, etc. So I think really checking and not just assuming that the only ones of interest are science and engineering. And it then gives you a view of what it's like to work in an environment like that. And I think.
And the beauty of an internship in a national lab is you go there and then you are exposed to all those talks that people, and meetings and things like that. And you meet people that are not like you, don't think like you. Like if you go to a law firm, all the lawyers might have come through the same path, right? Maybe. Well, in a national lab, you have chemists, physicists, biologists, financial project management, human resources, workforce development people, and you can get to meet them all in one place, right? You come with an intern. I have a student that came as an intern in an explosives kind of dynamic experiments group, shock physics group, but she wants to do radiochemistry now as in her PhD. So we are working on finding her someone else at Los Alamos that can take her as a student now, right? So that's the beauty. How many of you watched Oppenheimer, the movie? Did anyone watch it? Oh, I see Scott, Irene. So you students, if you haven't watched Oppenheimer, you should. It gives you a flavor of all these different backgrounds of people that were necessary to answer a society international conflict, right? Through science, right? What we could do to do that. So you had all these people talking to each other from completely different fields, all sitting in one place. And that's what often national labs offer you. So
yeah, I was going to say the only thing I would add to that, because I know so many of you are sophomores and you heard that a lot of these opportunities maybe sometimes don't open up until your 11th or 12th graders. So what I would also suggest is one, check in with your high school. I know lots of high schools have internship programs and they're working with, you know, industries and folks in the community. So often there are some opportunities there. It may not be quite focused on what you're particularly interested in, but see if there's one that kind of aligns with something you're interested in, because then at least you start to get some experience. And then that looks even better, right? So when you're getting ready to go to some of these other internships. So I would check to see what kind of opportunities there are in the summer after school in your colleges. And sometimes just a good old fashioned Google search. Believe it or not, you will find that there are opportunities to do all kinds of internships, either within your community or maybe in a surrounding community. And then again, you just kind of decide if it's worth it or not worth it, or, you know, whether you want to wait or not wait. But there are all sorts of internships. And then again, the last thing I'm going to just say is I'm going to just echo really very loudly on us point. I do not have a STEM background, and I worked for places like the University of Corporation for Atmospheric Research and the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado, and now I'm at Los Alamos National Laboratory. It really does take a team, right? It takes a village to get the kind of science done that you get at a national laboratory, any of the 17, right? So just remember there's a home. I mean, we want you to find success where you want to find it, but we would love for you to find it with a national laboratory.
So we're going to take the last question because we're running out of time. Sanbi says, I'm interested in learning about diseases. What courses do you recommend I do, or where should I focus on? That's completely out of my field. So
it's out of my field directly, but areas such as genomics are important in disease evolution and treatment. The other thing I might suggest, although this one is kind of a tome, but there are a number of books written that are interesting. The one that I really liked was about cancer. It was called The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee. And that gives hints into both how diseases form and evolve, and then how they're treated. And it would give you hints as to, you know, what kinds of courses would be relevant. But certainly genomics, when I think of the work that we were doing with COVID and also with HIV, understanding the evolution of the disease and being able to predict possible trajectories is really important in the treatment side. So, and it would also be, it might be important to understand whether you're thinking of it from the point of view of a researcher versus a clinician or a physician treating it, because that might take you in some slightly different directions beyond, you know, kind of core biology.
And if you go to the different national labs and you Google, you go through their website and you find a name of someone working on something, don't be shy. Write them an email. If they don't answer within a week, write again. You deserve an answer, right? A yes and no, sorry, I'm too busy, right? Remember, people are busy and they might get too many emails, but just keep pushing, keep contacting people from different places. Talk to you know, your people that are close to you, you're like your medical doctor. Next time you go talk to the doctor and ask, hey, what do you think, right? And then you will see you know, an image will form with all the pieces from different people working in those fields. I also enjoyed Irene mentioned a book. I really enjoyed The Code Breaker by Jennifer Doudna. Right? That I really like. I'm not in bio. There was a lot of bio, very long words, but I really enjoyed it. So audiobooks, if not, you're not a good reader, you know, you don't enjoy reading books, audiobooks are fantastic and they offer you a window to that knowledge. And with that said, can we give a big thank you to the speakers today? Yay! If you we are fueled with by kind words from you all. Again, they took their Saturday off. I didn't go skiing because of you. So thank you for being here. Remember that you can find a lot of information about Sage Journey in our social media at Sage Camp. Sage Life is one Saturday a month, and our next event is going to be on March 9th. And if you have questions about Sage, please contact info@mysagejourney.org, and hopefully we will answer your questions. And if you want to talk to any of the people that came here this morning, Irene, Rebecca, this session is going to be has been recorded and is going to be available in YouTube. Thank you so much.